Could his, I'm finding the common theme here is this. Don't ignore the message because of the messenger. Right? Cat wins. Okay. He might not be the best messenger, but was the message he was saying true?
Message.
It's like, again, don't ignore the message because you don't rock with the messenger.
Welcome to the Clear in the Air podcast with D and Q.
I'm D.
And I'm Q. Hey man, back again?
Yep.
Yes sir. Listen, today we are talking about the impact of hip hop. We talked about this back in season 3. We're gonna take an approach that addresses some feedback about hip hop over the last 50 years. But before we do that, listen, we want to ask that you make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's where we've got everything, all of our content, long content, short content, all that good stuff, right? Also want to make sure that you are paying attention to Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well for the audio experience. That being said, hey brother, talk to us about why we're talking about hip hop. We've been talking about 50 years of hip hop, just kind of, and talk about some of the stuff we've done in the, season 3, whatever.
Well, one of the things we had talked about with hip hop is, the effect it may have on the community, the youth, anybody, bro. Like, just, are the lyrics really reflective of what's really going on? And
right.
Should the artists that, spew those lyrics, should they be held liable for the stuff that they're throwing out there? You know what I'm saying? Should they be called out on stuff like that? And it came back into the limelight recently because there's an artist by the name of D1. I want to say he's out of New Orleans, somewhere out of Louisiana. And he called out some prominent rappers, bro, because of the content in their music. Specifically, he called out Rick Ross, Meek Mill, and Jim Jones.
Right.
And he did it saying he loved those brothers, he's a fan of those brothers, but they have a bigger responsibility about the things that they put out in their music. And so we talked about deflection, and all 3 of those artists responded to D1. But in their responses, they all deflected. They all talked about how many turkeys they passed out in the hood, how much money they gave away, this and that, blah, blah, blah. None of them addressed the issue, which was the content of your music.
Right.
And the stuff you talk about, the killing, the drug selling. Those were the things, and they were, they was trying to joke him and his looks and this and that. He's like, fellas, I love y'all, but y'all talking about turkeys. Let's talk about, you just dropped the album and you still talking about killing.
Right.
So they pretty much all deflected.
Yeah.
And so that was what I talked to you about. Well, we both talked about it to each other, but when I was like, bro, this another topic with hip hop. And I mean, I love Ross. I love Jimmy too. And I like Meek as well. But I was kind of, let me say this, because we just talked about conversation, men communicating, and we talked about Cat Wing. I think the 3 guys were caught off guard, and it's like, Jim Jones said himself, like, you could have reached out to me and had a conversation beforehand. But now you know how Jimmy is. Once you done do it, Jimmy, like, it ain't no talking. It ain't no talking. I hope I don't see it. You see what I'm saying? So in that case, my thing with D1 is, could he have, instead of doing it publicly on social media, could he have reached out to those guys and said, guys, I'm huge fans of y'all, but I wanted, to discuss, the content of y'all music and the negative impact that it's having on our community, on our youth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but he chose the method that he chose. I think he was on a podcast or whatever and said it, and it went viral.
Yeah.
And all 3 of those guys responded. So, again, could it have been handled different? Because now you calling me out. You know what I'm saying? Now I feel like I have to defend myself. Well, I done did this and did this. Yes, but you didn't address the topic, which was the music.
Right. Thank you for that. I think I questioned his method, even though I love the message as well. And not in response, his response was, it wouldn't have had the impact that it had. which
What you mean?
I think, and I might be misquoting him, but he basically said that, him doing it this way, it became a topic. It became something to talk about. And ever since, he's been doing updates. So let me tell you, Meek probably had the most chill response.
He did, by far.
Okay, and his whole thing with Meek Mill was, yo, you the face of prison reform for hip hop. How can you be the face of prison reform at the same time dropping an album talking about killing somebody at a red light or something like that he had mentioned? So,
because at the time, him and Ross had just dropped that album.
But what I will say is, because he's standing, D1 is standing 10 toes down on what he said, I continue to see feedback come from D1 about stuff with how it's making that conversation sparked a change. And what's funny is you'll even see in the comments other rappers who may not still be rapping or may not be rapping at that same level, who in the comments, that's what I love, because you got people that are saying, yo, keep doing what you're doing, yada yada yada, all this type of stuff like that. So I love that. And even Meek went on and he, I think, was crying. He was addressing something in an interview, and he was crying.
I think was he receiving like an award or something?
I think he may have been.
Yeah, he was talking about it. I think his mom was in attendance or something. He kind of broke down.
Yeah, which I think is authentic, and some people probably clowned him for that. But you gotta understand, when you come from these gutter streets, to be able to see a level of success over a course of time. You never thought you'd be living like how you be living. Realize that you could either be dead like so many others, ARAB, done. Somebody who lived what they spoke, right? And the lyrics were used. That's another thing that we could talk about, how your lyrics are being used against you. So it does not benefit you, young thug. Yeah, I did question if it could have been done a different way. I do think if he had reached out, because I also think you need to know your clientele, for the lack of better words. You need to know who you're dealing with. And I think to be most impactful, reach out one-on-one.
I think, like you were saying, Meek probably had I don't know the word you used.
I said the most chill.
Chill, right.
A word.
So on the opposite end of that, Jimmy probably had the most. Only Jimmy said ain't no talking. Ain't no. Don't even try to reach out now because you could have did that beforehand. But Jimmy said, you don't know. You don't know how. Basically implying that people care about me so much. You don't know the depths that they willing to go to just to protect me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like. He's basically implying that I might have people that when they see you, now they're going to cause harm to you.
Little cousin.
Right. That's what he was saying. And so that's when you talk about the comments. People in the comments was like, bro, he from New Orleans. We rocking with D1 heavy. Y'all ain't doing nothing to D1. I don't know if you saw that. They was like, don't get it twisted just because he like a Christian rapper. Yeah. Just because he a Christian rapper. Nah, we ride with D1. Yeah, they was flaming Jimmy comments up. Yeah. They was like, don't get it twisted, bro. He from New Orleans. Y'all ain't doing nothing now. Yeah. And so there, it goes back to that kind of thing where you got all these other people coming into the situation when it was just between two people.
Right.
Like we talk about Big and Puff, Big and Pop. Get them in the room, get Eric, get Puff out of there, get Suge out of there, had them talk, could have been cool, and now they both gone.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so now you got New Orleans riding for they guy. Harlem definitely gonna ride for Jimmy. Yep. Miami gonna ride for Ross. Philly gonna ride for me. You know what I'm saying? And so you gonna have all these other people that really ain't got nothing to do with nothing. He addressed 3 people. Yep. Right? I thought it was interesting the 3 he addressed, because I'm like, so many others he could have did it too.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe those are the people that he really like and really listen to and really think has an impact in the community as far as whether it's positive or negative. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it was strategic. Mm-hmm. I think it was strategic, and then you also realize, because remember what you said, like records were dropped.
Right.
So there was other things going on. Like
Right.
again, Meek Mill is looked at as the face of prison reform in hip hop, and he's winning awards and stuff. So that I definitely.
You know what I think it was? I think he had finally got off probation or something.
It was something. It was something.
Yeah, I think he had finally got off probation.
Yeah.
Or they helped him with the reform thing.
Yeah.
He had his probation. Something like that. It's either award or he got his probation up there. Yeah, he definitely got emotional time.
Yeah, as he should have. So there's two other people I want to talk about, Dr. Umar Johnson and then Special Ed. Two people who have made comments about hip hop, and then we're going to get into the bigger story, which leads to what they're saying. Special Ed mentioned how he felt like NWA, Ninjas with Attitude, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre,
Ran, Eazy-E,
yeah,
Yella.
yeah. So how they brought the age of destruction for our children. So I want to bring two things to our attention. I'm gonna let you do some history for us. The two things to bring up is that he mentioned age of destruction, and I'm gonna talk about that in a second, because of the big song After Police, right? And so what that did is police are in all 50 states, your small jurisdictions, your big jurisdictions, big cities, little cities, everywhere, right?
Country, city.
You hit everything
Suburbs.
when you said that.
Right.
Nationally, and I'm sorry, internationally. It's police everywhere. So when you make that statement, it hits headlines. It makes headlines. That was done 30 years ago?
NWA, what, the 80s? NWA was like, no, 80s, 90s? Like mid to late 80s?
That was 80s.
Early 90s?
Yeah, that was 80s.
Yeah.
So you're talking about that was done all that time. So now that lends to, watch this, that lends to what we see today of how there is this issue between the inner cities and the hoods with police, right? Now, I'm not debating who's wrong, who's right, and all that stuff. What I'm saying is, we talk about the impact of hip hop, the fact that who listens to hip hop? Our kids do. I was a kid when I heard hip hop. I identified, that we like to use that word, I identified, but I kind of related to hip hop because we both from the inner city. You know what I'm saying? So you draw to that. You seeing somebody who looks like you. You seeing somebody who has a voice. So all that being said and done, it was that, right? But then the second part of what he said, our children. So we're talking about legacy now. All right, you live long enough, you're going to have some kids.
The heirs.
The heirs, right? Right? So those two things kind of were addressed in that statement. And he said, Special Ed, who was a hip hop artist.
Yeah, and it just seems so random and out of the blue how he said it.
It did.
Yeah, so Special Ed, hip hop artist back in the 80s. Top song was I Got It Made. He had another joint, I'm the Magnificent. Just rapper from New York was big back then. He was on Drink Champs. Shout out to Drink Champs. Drink Champs is a platform podcast with Nori and DJ EFN. And what their big thing is, they want to give the people that moved our culture their flowers. So that's why they had Special Ed, especially right now with it being 50-year anniversary of hip hop. So a lot of pioneers in hip hop from back in the day are getting their flowers now. So Special Ed was on the show, and he said that, bro, it just came out of left field, and I was like, wow. Yeah. I was like, ooh, this gonna ruffle some feathers.
Yeah.
And bro, like, people on the West Coast is probably like, what?
Oh no, they were ready to come in.
Yeah.
They had to have meetings to kind of calm stuff down, for him to talk to people.
Yeah, and I think did he go on Vlad like after and talk more about it in depth?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he was on Vlad to talk about more in depth, like what he meant and why he said what he said.
Right.
But again, is it validity to what he said? Now, could I'm finding the common theme here is this. Don't ignore the message because of the messenger. Right? So every cat wins. Okay. He might not be the best messenger, but was the message he was saying true?
Message.
So, it's like, again, don't ignore the message because you don't rock with the message. So, a lot of people was like, who is Special Ed? Why he don't have enough cachet to be talking down on NWA? Okay, but what he said was about.
But you can't. And then with that statement right there, you can't say that because my kids, I got stake in the game. Number one, I was in hip hop. I was a hip hop artist. That's number one. Number two, if I don't got kids, my sister got kids, my brother got kids, my brother got kids. You don't. But there's kids I care about that could be impacted by what you do. They may have been impacted by what I did in hip hop. And I think that's the point. Like I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's speed it up a little bit. So Dr. Umar Johnson kind of made a statement. I don't know if it was on, I don't think it was on Vlad, but he made a statement on a podcast, The Art of Dialogue, where he was talking about how he don't think hip hop has done nothing for our community in the last 50 years. He started talking about schools, he started talking about banks, and he started talking about a couple other things that have not necessarily like improved or changed. We're gonna talk about what we think hip hop has done in a little while. But I think what he said is everything. Like we hear these things and then and I'm gonna tell you why I believe. I think the reason why we take offense to these things is because we idolize a Jay-Z, we idolize a Tupac, we idolize a Biggie, we idolize these people. And how dare you talk about them in a negative light? Again, let's go back to something else. Fat Joe said he lied in 95% of his hip hop.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Now, I don't know if I necessarily believe that.
Yeah, I don't know. He said 95. I definitely don't believe that because I know some of the stuff that Joe was talking about he was doing. They was crazy in them streets. Terror Squad
and
was
other
a
people,
terror.
And other people will tell you so.
Terror Squad was a terror. For sure. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen them in Miami.
Just listen to Tony Yayo.
Listen to Tony Yayo. Tony Yayo ain't scared of nobody. And he said the one beef I was a little worried about was with Terror Squad. Because they crazy.
Yep.
Fat Joe, Tony Sunshine, Pistol Pete, Raul, rest in peace, Raul. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. I've seen TS. I've seen TS. They did not play.
Yeah.
They did not play. And what Tony said, the crazy Dominicans with the knives on them.
Yeah. That's a hilarious dude.
Them Spanish niggas from the Bronx, them niggas, man, are just crazy. The Dominican, Puerto Rican niggas, like, them niggas, when it come to certain niggas they love, they gonna go all the way. But look, I had two of my mans with me. He had two little Spanish niggas that look like they, dance with the knives. He had two little grimy niggas with him. So, like, Joe got. I'm glad the beef with Fat Joe is over.
The point is,
it's dope to see how Joe has changed and grown and progressed. You know what I'm saying? Joe is 50 plus now. He don't, it's super dope to see him and 50 be cool now. Because they had real beef. It would have been bloodshed. It would have been bloodshed. Yeah. And now just to see them, they kicking the courtside the game. They, you know what I'm saying? They mad cool with each other. And that's the progression we like to see. Nobody was killed. Nobody was hurt. You know what I'm saying? Put all that stuff to the side.
Yeah. So let's ask this question.
Okay.
Do you agree with what we've seen? You heard D1 and what his sentiments are. Mm-hmm. We heard Special Ed, and we hear what Dr. Umar Johnson said. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with either parts of what they've said, none of what they said? How do you feel about what has been said?
I definitely agree with some parts of it, bro. And we've talked about that. We love hip hop. We love what it's done for our culture, but there are some things within it that we necessarily don't like. I mean, we just have to. On this podcast, we keep it 100. We have those. We have those hard conversations that we not necessarily don't even want to have, but we need to have. You know what I'm saying? There have been topics where I ain't want to talk about it, but it's like, bro, we got to talk about it, and vice versa. And I was like, bro, we got to talk about it. I know I don't want to talk about it either, but if we're gonna do that and have these tough conversations, we got to be real with ourselves, bro.
Yeah.
Like we just have to. So there are things within hip hop that are detrimental.
Let's talk about it. We're not gonna take a lot of time, but let's talk about it. So one thing we know off the top, and we've been doing this RIP stuff and talking about people. We did an episode where we talked about who we've lost in hip hop. Okay, too many people to name. Every year there is somebody. We gun each other down. The platforms that we have as artists, and when I say we, I do mean the African American community. Okay, we gun each other down. Again, how we settle our disputes, it's not over wax, or if it doesn't always stay on wax. All right,
shoot, so it's going past fist fights now. Like remember back in the day, like you would fight, either get beat up or do the one getting beat up, but you go home.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You go home.
You might go home like this,
lumped up, yeah,
but you go
home.
Yeah.
Those things heal.
Yeah. So the gun violence. I would say the degradation of women. Okay, I have 2 daughters, right? I have 2 daughters. I've helped raise 4, so I got 4 daughters. It would bother me a couple things to see my daughter in a rap video. We talk about video vixens and all this, that, and the third. That's dangerous. Yeah, you in the rap video, and maybe 20, 30 years from now, we can say, oh, Melissa Ford was in this video. Gloria Velez was in this video. Okay, cool. What did you have to do? Because it wasn't necessarily glorious what we saw you do on the screen, but what did you do behind the scenes? See, that's all Cat Williams was talking about.
Right, because all that stuff is coming out now.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, if it ain't already recorded. Because just think back in them days when we was growing up, you ain't have all the video cameras.
Yeah, the camcorders.
Yeah.
VHS.
Yeah, but even that's still out. But this is the truth. Now it's going to be exposed. How does that hurt you? The way we view women, not just what's in the music videos, but what we say about them. The B word is out of control.
They calling themselves B's.
That too. So if we just stopped at those 2 things right there, that would be enough. But there's still other things. Like for example, we talked about police relations, stuff like that. Making songs like After Police, that is tough when you think about it. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not favorable or partial to police. I got stories of situations where I've been profiled. But this is the thing, at the end of the day, something go down, I'm calling 911.
For sure.
Now, we ain't talking about snitching. I'm just saying I'm calling 911.
Yeah, I mean anything. You get in an accident, who you call? Somebody break in your house, who you call?
and part of that is because you have to, in a lot of cases because you got to file a report anyway for it to be legit. Right. So again, like I just like those 3 things are really big things when we talk about hip hop. I'm gonna go here and then we can move on unless you got one. Is like the glorification of material goods. Right? No, I'm gonna say 5 things. The glorification of material goods. So I don't forget. Let me say this last. What I notice in our hip hop is, I would say a lot of pride. So like, and it's gone out throughout the course of hip hop.
It's built on that.
Yeah,
it's built. I'm
better
the best.
than you.
Yes, I'm the best rapper.
Yeah.
I got the most women.
Yeah.
I got the most chains. I got the biggest chains. I got the most cars. I got the biggest house.
Right.
It is a very braggadocious.
It's vanity.
Yes, very. Oh, good one.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's while we could talk about some of the advantages of things that hip hop has done. I'm gonna just say this: the lack of character plus more money or more goods still equals a disaster.
Well, we just said this yesterday. Money just heightens. It just like
exacerbates it.
Yeah, bro. If you a lame and then you got money, you just a lame with money.
Yeah.
Like you can't unlame yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If like you just, because we just talk about how so many rich people are still not happy.
Right.
And whatever, they just not happy.
Yep.
And it's like, that's because money just exacerbates things.
Yep.
That's all it does. It just heightens it.
So that's the thing, when you think about it like that, what good did it do for you to have more? More to do what? Because you ain't giving it away. You have more, and like I say, you're still not happy. Them things can't. So now you get stuck in the Hollywood world. Now you get stuck in this world of I got all this money, I'm not happy, let me spend more so that I can make myself happy, and none of it does it, right? And we see that on a smaller scale. People who just make low six figures, whatever. Okay, and then again, we talked about pride, and there's the pride that's good in terms of I'm proud of the hard work I've put in, but then there's the pride that says, well, I have this, you don't have it. Or I have this, I'm better than you because I have it. So I would say those are probably the top 5 issues that we could talk about or discuss when we talk about hip hop. And I think another thing to kind of really sum it up is to say this: if it is entertainment, do our kids know that?
Because when we talked about it, we made it personal. We
Right.
said you and I have the discernment to know that we can listen to NWA. We ain't got to go. We can listen to Ross. We can listen to me. We can listen to Jimmy, and know not to go out here and sell drugs, not to go out here and shoot somebody, not to go out here and beat up somebody, not to go out there and abuse women or call women out their name. Like, we know that. We were raised a certain way. We know that. We know what's real and what's not.
Right.
And we know how to differentiate right from wrong.
Yeah.
Right? The problem is not everybody, especially youth, not everybody knows how to do that. Whether they haven't been taught, whether their upbringing, whether their living situation, the dad might not be around, this and that. But some people just don't know that that's not the way to do things.
Right.
You see what I mean? So now, if they have an issue with somebody, well, I heard on the record, you got to be dealt with. Okay? And people might be like, yeah, is really people doing that off music? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Music has that type of impact. It has that type of power.
Yeah.
It does, bro.
Yeah.
It does. We see it. We see how many times we hear somebody did something and they was like, yeah, well, I was listening to so right before and I just got amped, I got hyped, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And now you see these lyrics are coming back on y'all. They coming back on y'all. We ain't even talk about, oh my God, we ain't even talk about how, all this stuff is coming out, about underage women and this and that, how they was doing back in the day, domestic violence and all this stuff. Bro, they digging up lyrics, these old school rappers and stuff they was talking about back in the day. It's bringing it to the forefront now. It's like, you put that on record?
Right.
Some well-known hip-hop people that they going back and pulling this stuff up, and it's like, oh, wow.
These are the behind the scenes things we're talking about. Because, what were you doing in the studio when you recorded this? What were you doing at home? You know what I mean? See, what we don't realize is your actual life matters. Because, okay, what was the song? Blurred Lines? Well, let's take that as an actual topic. So the lines are so blurred that is it entertainment or is it you? And that's part of the reason why Young Thug's going through what he's going through. You're seeing people have these lyrics be used against him. A.R.Ab, his lyrics was used against him. So when you start seeing people lose their lives, a lot of these rappers and a lot of the Chicago stuff, the drill stuff, you telling, even in DC, I didn't realize how bad it is.
Memphis.
Yeah.
Yo Gotti just lost his brother to gun violence.
Yeah.
So
you seeing it's so prevalent. So let's clear the air. How many times are we burying somebody? Because watch this, you bury somebody because the op got him. Now you at the funeral or the cemetery, and then there's more violence there. So it's just
it's a cycle that it just has to be stopped, bro. It just has to be stopped. And again, the deflection, bro.
Yeah. We got to deal with the issues. I like what you said earlier when you mentioned how just because you don't like the messenger don't mean the message is wrong.
Bro. Yeah, I mean, and that's something that I deal with personally. You know what I mean? I may not like the person that's delivering the message, but that doesn't know whether the message is right or wrong.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I had that's a mantra I had to use personally.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it could have came from a different person, but at the end of the day, was the message true? Is it important? Is it beneficial?
Yeah. Well, yo, let's right. You know, we're clearing the air, but let's talk about some stuff that hip hop has done.
Everything revolves around hip hop, bro. Like
True.
commercials, movies, entertainment, like sports. I mean, hip hop has had a great impact. It has provided a lot of better opportunities for people, for those that are in it, their families. So we've talked about it. It highlighted, the women in hip hop. You know what I mean? Gave opportunities for them. Showed their creative side. They can get on the mic and spit just like the dudes. You know what I mean? The way we dress. Show them your feet.
Shoot.
Yeah, look at my boy. Look at my, you know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I just said to say, you know what I'm saying, with the Tim boots.
Yes.
With the Tim boots.
Which is a staple in hip hop. Definitely a staple. Yo, we gotta definitely do that. Definitely has to be an entire episode in and of itself.
The way we talk.
Gave us a voice.
Gave us a voice, bro. Gave
When-
us a
when
voice,
we
a
didn't-
platform
yeah.
when we didn't have it.
Yeah.
It gave us opportunity to tell our frustrations with the police.
Right.
Tell our frustrations in the community. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to Pac for that, because I feel like not only him, but I think
He was big.
He
was
was
big
big.
with that. He, especially in the early stages, he wanted to be the voice for his people.
yeah.
You know what I mean? He was definitely big on that. I mean, it's done a lot, bro. It's done a lot. But it is also changed. It also, like to Special Ed was saying, it took a turn somewhere.
Yeah.
And it got dark.
Yeah.
And, man, it's but it's definitely done great things. But again, it took a turn.
Yeah.
It took a turn somewhere.
Yeah.
It took a turn.
Internationally, I think, speaking of
Oh,
Tony
for sure.
Yayo, he just got off tour with 50, him and Uncle Murder, and yo, you talking about being in places I ain't even been. And I'm not saying like who am I, but I'm just saying like places I wouldn't have even think to go.
Tony Yayo got a big chain of a passport. He called like the passport boys or something. Like Tony Yayo
He's hilarious.
he's hilarious, bro. I've always liked Tony Yayo. I have my issues with 50, but I've always liked Tony Yayo, and I've always respected his loyalty to 50.
Yeah.
I've always respected that, man. I've always liked Tony Yayo. For some reason, I just always liked Tony Yayo, bro. Like you can't pay for that loyalty.
Yeah.
You just cannot, bro. And he's hilarious.
Oh, he's hilarious.
He's
He's West Indian too.
He's a good
I
storyteller.
think he's from Trinidad.
Yeah.
You know another thing I would say, because you just brought it up. I think brotherhood. I think
Sure.
just look at this for example. Not to be on Pop, more or less it ain't even necessarily just about him, but he was in this. Think of the movie Juice. That crew, you had Omar Epps,
The DJ
was the
Q.
DJ hip hop. All right. You had it was one of the 5 not stages of hip hop, but 5 elements.
Right.
Yeah, obviously Pac was an actual rapper, not in that movie, but they were a crew. You know what I'm saying? And so you find so much of that in our hoods where we have crews now. Just the other thing.
Raheem and Steele.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think again how it changes and how it turns. Omar Epps wanted to use his part of hip hop, the DJ. That ain't necessarily hurting nobody. The rest of them, they robbed, stole, and did, whatever. But the point is, having a crew of guys, having a bond with some guys. And I think that's really what that movie was about at the end of the day. Sad things happened, people went crazy. Pac was crazy in that joint. People losing their life, like what happens in the hood. But I think the brotherhood was very, very important. And I think when money is not involved and we can really focus on what's important, you could have a brotherhood with somebody or a crew for life. Fat Joe will tell you that you look at a picture and he might be the only one alive in that picture still. That was your crew. So having a crew of guys, the people that you grew up with who know you, because speaking of Hollywood, coming into an industry where you know nobody, it ain't gonna be easy to trust people. So this is what we want to say as we end. If you aspire to be a hip hop artist, if you aspire to change your life with hip hop, okay, understand that money does not necessarily change your life for the better. You need to have a firm grounding of character, of morals. And like our boy Cat Williams, okay, some things should not be compromised for money.
Yes, especially your man. Yeah.
Hey, listen, we're going to get with y'all later. Hey, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure that when you're in the car, that audio experience is everything. Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You want the clips? Head on over to TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We out.
Peace.